I'm pleased to take a call on this particular debate, and it is for the first time I'm responding to a speech by the Prime Minister, a plan by the Prime Minister. But, Mr. Speaker, a few speeches ago we heard from the Minister of Social Development, and I would have expected that the Honourable Paula Bennett would have taken the opportunity made available to her to really take the social development content of the Prime Minister's speech further. It certainly was a glorious opportunity, a set piece, if you like. We would have expected Paula Bennett to explain that policy direction, that social policy and social development direction a little bit further. It would have given us a sense of a sense of what the government is trying to achieve in its social development program, as reflected in this particular document. Would have taken an opportunity, at least, to explain her own philosophy about where she wants social development to go. And again, a great opportunity was made available to the Minister at that time. And perhaps the Minister would have shared with us some of our own doubts and ambivalences about what we are trying to do and the problems we are trying to address in this country in terms of social development. I would have respected, Mr. Speaker, such a speech. I would have listened to it very carefully and probably very, very quietly and even respectfully. But here was an opportunity. But that opportunity was missed, and in its absence, my colleagues, my women friends from this side of the House were riled against for no good reason at all. And I would have thought that the opportunity might have been taken. But, Mr. Speaker, it was an opportunity lost. Mr. Speaker, in a Prime Ministerial statement of this type, one looks for certain things, and I would have thought the Honourable Paula Bennett would have told us about the markers that she was looking for. For me, I look for balance, some kind of balance in this statement, some kind of measure of fairness, and also solutions to the pressing social needs and economic needs of our particular society, and especially the needs of the most vulnerable in our community, which this Parliament stands as their champions, really, together with everybody else's. And for me, there are two primary components that one looks for. And these are the two components of national development. And what are those two components of national development? The core business of this House. It is the economy, and it is the people without whom the economy would not exist. And these are its people. Those are the two components. And so put another way, one would have looked at the statement addressing national development through the combination of economic and social development. Those are the things I was looking for in this particular statement. And we're looking also for the solutions and the benefits for the many and not the few. Let me just take two examples if I have time. And one is the policy framework for GST. The plan is to raise GST to 15%, and colleague after colleague from this side has got up to really demonstrate what will be the effects of that on a particular section of the economy. And then the idea is to increase GST, provide some tax relief, and at the same time use the bulk of that money, or significant amount of that money, to decrease tax at the upper end. And we are also promised in this statement and subsequent statements by the Prime Minister that no one will be worse off. Well, I think we should interrogate that proposition, Mr. Speaker, in some detail. Others have done it as well. But in trying to gauge for myself whether there is balance in this particular statement, I want to use that as an example. For those on low incomes, this increase in GST, even with some compensating tax relief, their situation actually gets no better. I really don't understand how the Prime Minister can actually say that their situation will get really better or somewhat better. It's just not possible to see that actually occurring. However, However, and I'll explain to the member how that is so, and I'll invite the member to also go and do this exercise in his own electorate with the people who fall in this particular category. And the member also realised, but for the other end of the spectrum, those earning above $70,000, the benefits will be enormous compared to those who are on limited income. For the individual or family on low income, people who work hard for their wages, and for them any increase in GST, any increase in the cost of food, clothing, petrol, rates, etc., raise enormous burdens. These families end up, after paying for the basis, the member may want to listen to the analysis, and I invite you, although there are not too many, the member, my apologies, in your particular electorate, but the electorate not far from your own, are people of this nature. For them, the benefits will be nil. But for many in your electorate, they will be indeed significant. And perhaps that's what your interest is. My interest is to see the balance between the two. And once you do that, these families end up, after paying for the basics, with no spare cash at all. Even after you give them, they receive rather tax breaks, there's no benefit to them at all. And I wonder, and they spend 100% of their income, the member knows that, in just living day by day. And is this a step change? Is this a step change that we have been promised in this particular document? It's not a step change. It actually is a continuation. It actually is a continuation of the kind of policies a national government has pursued for generations. Privilege the rich and punish the poor in one form or another, but the rhetoric is not there. But for those on high incomes, a smaller percentage of their income actually goes into the basics, and the tax cuts give them quite a good relief, if you like. So GST increases for the low-income households will be a huge burden. So, Mr. Speaker, if we deconstruct the proposals on GST in the Prime Minister's statement, then we can't be satisfied, and I cannot see how members opposite, who if they were intellectually honest and applied their minds to the exercise, could not be satisfied that this is being fair to the human input into national development, and therefore it is a policy that is not balanced. Therefore, it is not fair, and it is indeed on the contrary. Families at that level will still struggle, and this is really a shift of resources from the poor to the rich.
That's right.
Mr. Speaker, there is another matter I want to raise, and there is lots that's said in this particular statement about the social services, and it purports to address the emerging underclass. And the Prime Minister plans to improve social services for them. Whānau ora, we don't know where that will lie. I hope it will lie in a place where it does improve social services beyond where it is today. I'm not going to bag the social services of today, because here are people that day in and day out go out and do the work that nobody wants to do in our particular society. But here was a program actually working, Te Hurihanga, working successfully. And if the member would like to identify himself and say it wasn't, I will question that. It wasn't social engineering, my good friend, because here was a program that's working and working for the most difficult 20%, 20 cases or so. But last week Mr. Power says, when we challenged it, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I want to challenge Simon Power to take a call and tell us the real background to what it is that Judge Caroline Henwood does not understand, because they report daily in the newspapers saying this is a stupid decision. And somehow Paula Bennett turns this around in a perverse kind of way, cynical kind of way, because her argument today was that by closing that down, we'll use those resources for the many, not the few, which is what she said 3 speeches ago. Now that is very cynical, because these are the very people our society is concerned about. These are the ones that create a lot of difficulty. So, Mr. Speaker, my two anchors, my two factors by which I judge this particular statement, it is not balanced, It is not fair